What's up, party people? We need to create or productize some process for the sales team to hand off projects to the operations team. So let's dig into this. It says we've got some admin overhead and we want to decrease the burden for handing off between sales and operations. So we want to make sure that we've completed all the actions. We've actually got several tickets about this that I went in and made sure they were all sort of related to this. So here's another ticket, sales to ops checklist. We need to productize the sales to ops handoff. So we want to make sure that they have sent the preference form. So this is just an email. We want to make sure that they've sent the color sheet. That's another email. And that they've uploaded photos and updated the descriptions to be clear, almost like logging in and seeing reminders. Okay. We've got this other ticket that's sort of similar. And finally, we want to notify in Slack when things are transferred over. Let's get in and implement this. Part of it, I think, is also going to be, or will also involve cleaning up this view here. So we have a way to filter by who is the manager of an active lead, and then also the sales status. So we can see what are all of the leads that Susie Wilderman has right now. So this is kind of all of Susie's leads. So what we want to do is start with, I think that we want to create this new model, this new concept called the sales handoff. And the idea will be we're going to create this object that represents a handoff between one part of the customer journey to another part where we're going to hand off from one manager to another. That'll let us do a couple things. One, we can track the status of those sales handoffs to make sure that they're being received, and or maybe they're getting kicked back to the sales team to add more detail. Another thing we can do is collect, or we can do validations to make sure that the projects are in the right states. So let's start off with Rails G scaffold sales handoff, and we're going to say the person that we're handing off to, this is going to be a foreign key. We're going to do a belongs to association to the manager that we're handing this off to. And maybe to make this more clear, we can say this is the new manager. And then we might have some notes as a text field, and we're going to have maybe a status. I'm going to store this as an integer, and we'll use an enum value. I've been using enums all over the place recently. I really like the patterns that fall out when you have an enum. And so that I said D, I need G. We want to generate the scaffold. Okay, so let's look at the migration that it created. Create sales handoffs. And in here, we've got this foreign key, but because new manager is not a class and there's no table called new underscore managers in the database, we need to make this foreign key to table for the users. We'll say that notes can be blank, and then the status here will by default be 0 and will not allow nulls inside of there. In this project, we're using discard as the way that we do soft deletes. So we want to add a date time for discarded at. And then we're also going to add an index for that discarded at, because we're going to filter almost all the time. We're going to filter by sales handoffs where discarded at is null to give us the current sales handoffs. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. And then if we look at the sales handoff model here, you'll see a few things. We've got this discard model so we kind of customize the generator a bit here to do a few things for us. One is it's adding this discard model. It's trying to figure out a prefix based on the first 3 characters of the class name, but this, we might want to just say this is the handoff or something. I don't know. Audited lets us keep track of who's changing what. Belongs to new manager. This is going to have a class name of user. And then we also want to set up our enum, which lets us, or one of the reasons why it's nice to set the enum before running the migration is that in the comment that the annotate gem will make, it will have the name for the default. So this the pending handoff. And maybe when we first create it, it's delivered or something. I don't know. Pending is a pretty generic term for status, but that should be fine for now. We can always come back and change the name of the status. And as long as we keep the numbers the same and they sort of mean the same things, then that should be fine. Okay, let's migrate. Rails DB migrate. And now if we refresh the page here, we Oh, I guess we got to go to our routes file and let's move sales handoffs down into our normal routes here. HIJK, elemental PQRS somewhere in here should work fine. So now we should have something like sales handoffs is a new thing with a bunch of sales handoffs. So if we say, give me a new sales handoff. Oh, you know what? The other thing that we didn't track was the project. So a sales handoff is definitely related to a project. So I'm going to say Rails DB rollback so that it undoes the migration that we just did. We'll go into create sales handoffs and add a new references here. This is going to reference a specific project. And in this case, we can just say foreign key true because this is referencing the projects table. So that should be just dandy. Rails DB migrate. Okay, we also need to go back into our sales handoff model and add a belongs to for the project. And we can go to the other side here and say that a project has many sales handoffs. Okay, we'll go back over. Actually, let's see. We do want that. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. Okay, so then from the sales handoffs here, we just have the new manager. We might go to the user model and add like, the user has many sales handoffs, but for now, we'll kind of keep that as is. Okay, I think our model layer is looking decent enough. The other thing I sort of thought about was that a sales handoff, we kind of always want this to be related to a project. So I think what we can do is we can add a query string parameter to this new route that just has the project ID, and then we'll just use that value when we're creating this. So new manager, this is going to be a drop-down list of the people who could be managers. Notes, I think it might be fun to do some like automatic summarization of the project or something. So maybe we can do that in addition to some custom notes that people set. And then status should be a drop-down list of, or maybe not even available as a form. Like maybe the sales handoff is just like, who's the new manager and what are the notes about the project? And then the status will be automatically set when we create the sales handoff. That seems good. Okay, so let's go to the sales handoffs controller. And down here, we'll take in the new manager ID, the notes. For now, we'll just leave the status as is. And then we also want the project ID. Okay. And on the new route, we'll say at project is project.find params project ID. I don't know if it ever makes sense to look at all, like a list of sales handoffs, probably. We're also going to make sure that you are logged in as an admin when you view this controller. Okay, so in the new view or in the form for the sales handoff, what we want to do is embed this project ID in here. So we're going to just say input type is hidden. And the value is going to be sales handoff project ID. Oh no, that's the name. And the value is going to be at project dot. Well, there's actually a couple different ways we could do this. Like we could always require that we're creating a project inside the controller here. Another option would be to initialize this dummy sort of placeholder with a project set up already. So then here we can just say like project.find params project ID. What's cool about that is that we can just refer to the sales handoff directly, sales handoff.project ID. I think that should work. Okay, so now when we refresh the page here, we should expect that there is a hidden input with ID 1, right? So if we look at this, we see this sales handoff project ID 1. And if we change this to 4 or something like that, then we see value 4. So that will give us our project ID. I don't know what's up, why this is, okay. It says hidden inputs should end with this. I just installed Ale, which is supposed to help in Vim for like highlighting, syntax highlighting and things like that. But yeah. Okay, so I've already got a select box in another form here called, I don't know, what is it? Project form for the manager. So I'm just gonna like grab this same thing and paste it in here. And Then we're going to change manager ID to new manager ID. So manager ID to new manager. Okay. All right. And this will be a select box that's going to iterate over employees and those employees that are account managers, and it'll print out their names. So now if we refresh this, cannot write unknown attribute project ID. Sales handoff should have a project ID, right? Oh, you know what? We didn't remigrate, did we? Rails? I thought we did. Rails DB migrate. What's going on here? Oh, okay. It was automatically refreshing without us updating. Okay, so the select box here right now is looking for a project, but this is actually just a sales handoff. Okay, refresh. Boom. All right, so now we've got the people who are account managers who are eligible to be the new one. I think we should maybe also exclude the current account manager, but we can make that improvement later. And then let's also just remove this status field for now, because we're going to set that sort of as we transition. So we'll need this new sales handoff that's like, okay, here's what's going on with this project. And then we will also have some way for the new manager to be notified. And when they're notified, they will also be able to like sort of accept that the thing was handed off. And once it's accepted, that means that they've kind of like got the ball and they're going to run with it from there. In terms of breadcrumbs here, I think I want the project to be in the crumb so that when we go back, we don't go back to the list of all sales handoffs. I want to just see the project. So in my new view, which is rendering my form, I can also change this to be like, I don't know, the project. So sales handoff dot project dot title. This will be the project path for the sales handoff dot project. I think that, okay, so this gives us a way to get back to the project. The other thing is that from the project view, I want a new action here that's going to be like a handoff or something. So from the project show page, we'll add a new method down here that is like handoff. And we can do this like if at project.status is less than 4. I can't remember, but there's like, let's just see if this, okay, so status, I want like the integer value for the status, because if we look at the project, or this is actually like sales status, if the sales status is less than 4, so take a look at the project here and sales status project, the project model. So the sales status is an enum that has all these different values, right? But only the first, 1, 2, 3, 4 are statuses where we would care about displaying the handoff. And in fact, like maybe we should only display the button once the status is 1. But I think there might be a possibility where, someone's going out on leave and they wanted to hand something off early, or I don't know. There's going to be different scenarios where we might want to hand it off in any of these cases. I don't think we'll ever want to hand it off if it's lost. What is another way that we could do this? Okay, so if it's active, maybe? Is that, okay, so I wonder if that will, okay, so let's see. Project, let's find this project. Project.find. This is going to give us proj, and we want to mess around with proj.salesStatus. Okay, so it's lead. So project.active. Does this, okay, yeah. We have this active scope, but I want to also add an active, just like a Boolean value to check to see if a project is active. And it will essentially do this same filtering. It's just going to check to see if the sales status and the project status are one of these. So here we'll just add a method down here. Okay, here we go. Is the project active? So if it's not discarded, and no, okay. Okay, so the sales status is in one of these, and the project status is not one of these. All right. Same thing with project status. All right. So now we can say, is the project active? And it is. And then if we say proj.update project status to done, then is it active? No? Okay. So we'll put it back to unknown. And then we'll change the sales status. Or let's see, proj.active should be true. And then we'll change the sales status. Sales status to lost ghosted. And now it's not active. Okay, great. So that's working as expected. From the project show view, if the project is active, then we want to show this link to Handoff. Okay. Oh, this one was lost. Okay. Or did I just, yeah. Sales status is lead. Okay. And now we have this handoff link. So when we click on that link, where should it go? It should go to create a new sales handoff. And in the query string, we should have project ID at project.prefix ID. Because we don't actually want the real numeric IDs in the URL. We want this like project ID in the URL for prefix IDs. Okay, so now we have a new manager. Let's pick the new manager, and we're going to say some test notes and create. All right, we've got a new manager. The status is pending. We have some test notes. So it looks like the sales handoff was created successfully. That's fantastic. In the show view for the sales handoff, I want to show maybe some more details about the new manager. Let's titleize the status, and let's also add a link to the project. So in the sales handoff partial, here we'll just make this a little prettier with a title. And then for the new manager, we'll say new manager.name. That should give us the name of the person. And let's also put like the avatar for them. Let's see. What is this? Avatar helper, avatar URL for. Okay, so that should, nope, avatar URL. How are we using this? We need an image tag. Okay, so image tag with the avatar URL for the thing. And then we're gonna give this a class of rounded full and width and height of 10. And because we're in local development, these images are actually like from a production S3 bucket, so we're not going to see the image, but we know that it should sort of be there. And one other thing that we want to do is just make it so that these are in the same row. So I'm going to say class flex row. And then is that going to automatically? Okay, gap 2. Okay, I don't know. I think it's going to look fine. Just like that. Okay, we also want a link to the project. So let's do that now. So we'll just say this is the project. And we're going to make a link to the sales handoffs project's title. And this is going to go to the project path for the sales handoff project. Okay, this is the name of the project, so now we can go back to the interior. We might also eventually want to list like all the handoffs that have been created somewhere on, maybe on this sales view here. And okay, another thing is that when we create a sales handoff, we want to touch the project so that it's updated, so that we know that something happened to the project. And the project is pretty important on the sales handoff details. So we'll put those at the top. We'll put the link to the project at the top. And then we probably also want some way from from this page to let the receiving manager approve it or like accept it. So we'll get there in just a moment. But before we do that, let's also notify in Slack when this happens. Okay, let's see. Actually, before we go too far, let's run the tests. And I'm sure there's a couple little things we need to update since we changed authentication and we changed a couple little things. Okay, yeah, so part of it is that our fixture, sales handoffs, doesn't know about projects. So we need to say project 1, project 2. Okay, rerun the tests. In here, you can see that this is expected it to be a redirect to this, but it redirected to users/sign-in. That's because in this controller test, we're not yet logging in as an admin. So I'm just gonna change that to admin. And then the other thing is that the params here, we need to like add the project ID in. This is all the result of me forgetting to add the project ID when we were generating the scaffold. This would be so much faster if I had like thought it out a little bit more carefully and planned it out. So here we can just say project ID is projects1.id. And then we need to add those params back in here. And I think we can do the same thing here at params. And then I have the Vim test plugin set up, so I can just do like leader G, which will run through all the tests in the same file directly from Vim. Pretty handy. It says couldn't find the project without an ID in the should get the new view. Okay, so in the new view here, we need to pass in the project ID in the query string parameters. And all right, probably, yeah, we're moving quick and glossing over some stuff, but I think that's all right. So in the sales handoff controller, after we create the sales handoff here and after it's saved successfully, we want to notify the new manager. And the other thing is that before we save, we also want to validate that the project is in a state that we can hand it off. And figuring out what those validations are is going to be kind of interesting and where we should put those. I'm kind of wondering if we want like a separate object that's like purely responsible for validating. I also think that this type of business logic needs to be really flexible because over time we're going to change the rules a lot, I expect, based on like what point at which we're handing off. So let's get the notify the manager stuff set up. Scaffold sales handoff. Okay. The next part is that in this project, we're using the noticed gem to send notifications. So we're going to say Rails G noticed notification for a sales handoff notification. I have realized that using this quite a bit, that it is really helpful to name the notifications with notification at the end. We've created a couple of them that don't have notification at the end, and it's kind of tricky to figure out what the heck that class does without going into it and looking at it. Okay, so we want to deliver by Slack. We're going to require param account, param sales handoff. And then our message here is just going to be something like new sales handoff. And the URL can be to the sales handoff path for params sales handoff. Now, we updated the generator for notifications so that it would also spit out this Slack thing with a bunch of stuff that we expect to use every single time, which comes in handy a lot. We use Slack notifications a ton. So this is going to be something like new sales handoff. And then in Markdown here, we'll put in the name of the customer. Let's actually just pull off like the customer is going to be params sales handoff.project. I think it's account. Let's go look. Project account. Yeah, I think it's account. And then let's also grab the project params sales handoff.project. Okay. And here we can do customer.name dash the project.title. And then we'll also put in the sales handoff notes, params sales handoff.notes. And then in the actions, we'll add a link that goes to the project inside of the tool. So here we're going to say project or sales handoff URL, params sales handoff. Okay. In fact, we might actually want, I think we want two URLs. So the first one is going to be the sales handoff. See the sales handoff. And then the other one's going to be see the project. Okay, so the first one is going to be sales handoff URL. Here we're using URL instead of path because we want the fully qualified URL with the domain and all that business in Slack, because Slack doesn't know about what domain we're at. So we'll call that sales handoff URL, and then down here we'll call this the project URL. And this will go to project. So we'll see the project, and then for the context about this notification, we're going to say this was sent because someone is handing off a project. In fact, instead of someone, we technically could pass down the current user, but for now we'll just keep it as someone to keep it simple. All right. So we have this sales handoff notification. We want this to be fired in the sales handoffs controller when it is created. So here we'll say sales handoff notification.with the sales handoff. And in this project, we always have to include an account, and we're going to deliver to the new manager. Now, by default, even though we're saying we want to deliver it to the new manager, we're using like a generic WebSocket or generic webhook endpoint for Slack. So it's going to end up in like a bucket over in Slack. Okay, so let's give it a whirl by creating a new sales handoff, which technically I think from sale, right? Okay, so from sales, we find a project, we go to handoff, and we're going to hand it off to Romana. Testing, notes, create sales handoff, and boom, there it is. We have this new sales handoff in Slack. Crowd goes wild. Ah, this is cool. Okay, so now from here we should be able to see sales handoff, and we jumped right to it. And we should also be able to see the project. Jumped right to it. So that is working well. Exciting times, okay? That is fantastic. All right. So that sort of solves some of these issues, right? Like that's kind of going to close out the send notification in Slack thing. So I guess I can send this to myself and pop it in this cycle. And then now I think we want to work on, some requirements. When we go to create the sales handoff, at the top of this view, I feel like we want to list out some requirements and whether or not those have been fulfilled. In fact, we might want to pop this entire form into some view over here for the sales team. There's also like a bit of cleanup that we can do here so that we only show sales related information before the project is in a 1 status. So I think we want a sales specific project view, but for now we'll just add the checklist at the top and then leave it up to the team for now to make sure that they have done the right steps. Let's also go back to the concept of marking this as approved. Maybe we just add a button here that says like accept or something for accepting the handoff. So inside of our sales handoff show page, let's also add a button to accept. And this is going to be a method that's going to go to like the sales handoff path. We're just going to update the sales handoff. And yeah, okay. The method is going to be patch and data, or is it, I think it's params. And then what status, I forget what we called the status. Let's go take a look at the sales handoff thing. Accepted. Okay. So if we refresh, let's take a look at this button here. So this should have created a form for us. And on the form we have patch. It's going to go to the correct path and it will update the status to accepted. Or actually, I guess this needs to be nested inside of sales handoff. Status is accepted, right? There we go. And now when we click accept, that marked it as accepted. Okay, great. So we only want to show the button if the current user's ID is equal to the person who's receiving it, right? This is the new manager. And if the sales handoff is not accepted. So we should not see it. All right, so let's go to another project here. And we're going to hand it off to ourselves. So I'm Ravinga. Oh, wait. I don't have... Okay, so we'll have to figure out... Yeah. All right, so let's create another one for Mike. All right, so I don't see the button because I'm logged in as Raviga. So I'm doing myself account manager. So I need to create a craft worker role for... Yeah, the role is account manager. And the craft worker is craft.findBy. And I think I can just find myself by. Okay, now I should be an account manager so that when I go back here and create a new sales handoff from someone to me, sales handoff to me, I'll be the new account manager, blah, 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 create sales handoff. Now I see the accept button. Cool. And when I click on accept, it goes from pending to accepted, and I no longer see the button. So that is cool. Yeah, I'll have to go back through and add all of the validation stuff, which I'm going to do sort of offline because I think that's going to take a bit of just messing around with CSS, which isn't very fun. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. This was kind of just, basic CRUD stuff with a little bit of notifications, but I'm just trying to shake off the dust, shake off the cobwebs, get back in the flow. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.